Welcome to VSB News Online for Thursday, July 16th. I'm Charles Webb. As the City Hall car park becomes an all-day parking lot on Monday, Corporation of Hamilton Secretary Ed Benavides says this is by no means a solution to the city's parking situation. A combination of legislation and other factors leaves the car park available for drivers to pay $15 a day on a first-come, first-served basis. As a result, short-term parkers have limited options, and the city loses a significant amount of revenue.
We realize that this is not a final solution, not in any form. It's a temporary patch, as it were, to fix part of the problem. We are unable to fix the entire solution until we have enforcement. Enforcement makes people change their behavior and follow the rules. Park for an hour, pay for the appropriate fee, et cetera, et cetera. Without enforcement, people slide into behaviors of ignoring parking regulations for time, and they also ignore payment. Now, we can't control the enforcement part at the moment. As I've said in a number of interviews, enforcement can be done either by the traffic wardens who work for the police service and are authorized to issue tickets, or clamping, which we're no longer authorized to do. Once the legislation goes through, all these things will come out. Unfortunately, the temporary part was to get the wardens into the car parks again, because they used to do it. But we've run into a little bit of an impasse with the operations with the police service, which we're hoping to work out. If we can, then if the wardens patrol the car parks, we'll have a limited form of enforcement, and we won't have to do this fixed fee.
So in the meantime, the people who are looking for short-term parking kind of suffer, don't they?
That's correct, but they're suffering whether we do this or not. That's the problem I'm trying to communicate. If we do nothing, the status quo is that there is no short-term parking because people are ignoring the rules. I can't fix that. So the other problem is that they're not paying. But if people have to pay up front, I'll have attendants at the City Hall entrance, and you will not be able to bring your vehicle in without paying.
Well, what does it take to put an attendant to the entrance?
We already have staff to do that. The difficulty is on if we let attendants at the entrance and they paid the 3-hour fee. If they decide to stay all day, I've got no way of moving the car. So the issue is, until we can do enforcement, we're forced to do a temporary patch. This patch only helps the corporation get its revenue. It doesn't fix the short-term parking, and we'd love to fix both. So as soon as we can get the legislative process put through, we'll be able to address day-to-day parking on and off street.
It looks as if there will be no official welcoming area for visitors at this year's Cup match, with both the Bermuda Hotel Association and the Bermuda Tourism Authority deciding that it was too costly to run. The news, as far as the BTA's decision is concerned, has disappointed Shadow Tourism Minister Zane De Silva, who had this to say.
The decision by the Tourism Authority to essentially boycott Cup match by dropping their tourism booth at St. George's Cricket Club and citing budgetary constraints should be very disturbing to all Bermudians and anyone who sees the value of this historic holiday to our tourism product. While the BTA couldn't find the money to market Bermuda effectively or to support Cup match, there didn't seem to be any budgetary constraints when it came to paying out nearly $500,000 in bonuses to Bill Hembury and the rest of his staff, despite the BTA producing the worst tourism numbers in 48 years. Cup match matters to Bermudians, and it matters to the countless number of visitors who have benefited from the hospitality and education provided over the years through the tourism booth at Cup match. We encourage the BTA to reverse this course and allocate some of their taxpayer funds, even at this last minute, to this vital part of our social and cultural heritage.
However, Pat Philip Fern, Chief Development Officer of the BTA, said that at last year's Cup match, the BTA had supplied transportation for visitors to the game, where a spectator area had been run by the Bermuda Hotel Association. It had been prepared to extend its activities, but Somerset Cricket Club had declined its grant offer, and this year St. George's Cricket Club had made no contact for funding any aspect of the 2015 Cup match. The BTA would instead be teaming up with a local entrepreneur and offer visitors cup match sites as well as tickets to the game. Independent Senator James Jardine spoke for a number of people both inside and outside the Senate yesterday evening when he congratulated the government for removing the clause from its law reform bill that would have ended the right of a defendant to remain silent.
I would like to commend the government for removing this particular clause. I think in this case they have listened and they have made an adjustment which I consider to be extremely relevant. On the question of the right to silence, obviously there's been many quotes from the Constitution, and so I'm not going to waste a lot of time on that particular issue. But I would like to at least read from one section of a report which I did pull, which I think it is important to bear in mind. And this came from the Justice System Review Committee report in March 2004. And it says, in larger Commonwealth jurisdictions, criminal bar associations comprising practitioners and academics study local and international criminal law developments and make recommendations for reform. The Bermudian criminal bar is small and overworked and has done well to collate the information with which we have been supplied. It is generally accepted that the Police and Criminal Evidence Act in the United Kingdom is model legislation, although the majority of submissions in Bermuda support the view that recent English restrictions of the right to silence and requirements for the disclosure of defense witness statements should not be followed in Bermuda. And that's a direct quote from that report, and that was back in 2004. So, Madam Chair, I just wanted to again express my gratitude and pleasure that the government has made this change, because I think it is a very significant change and hopefully will go a long way to, shall we say, convincing people that at times government does listen and does make the necessary changes, which many of us felt were absolutely essential.
And we'll be back with more right after this.
At the Coalition for the Protection of Children, we believe that children are a gift. We all want to be able to give them all the time, nurturing, and financial support they need.
But raising kids today can be expensive.
You can spend more than $1,500 on diapers, $1,500 on baby food, and another $1,500 on formula. Why, daycare can run you $9,000 to $10,000 a year. Then on to school uniforms for almost another $1,000, and we haven't even gotten to college yet. There are many options available for planning your family. The Coalition for the Protection of Children is there to help you decide. And don't worry about the expense of family planning. They are there to help you with that too. Just call or drop by their office anytime.
You would think that managing an hotel that's in receivership would present enormous challenges. But don't tell that to Paul Telford. He's in his 4th month as managing director of the Rosewood Tuckers Point Resort, and his enthusiasm is so infectious it's even rubbing off on his team. He says that receivership or no receivership, he's about making the hotel a success.
It's a dream come true. It's been very exciting. It's been a roller coaster ride. The first 2 to 3 weeks were intense. Getting used to the new role, and then that change from being more involved in the operations and being out with the people, the guests and the associates, to more of a strategic view. It's kind of hard for me to do because I really enjoy getting out and talking to guests, which I still do now. I've kind of gotten back to that, but there was a period there where I had to make that adjustment. So now I'm getting settled into it. The team is doing a phenomenal job. The hotel is performing very, very well. We're still ranked 6th out of 18 Rosewood hotels year to date.
If and when the hotel comes out of receivership, what actually happens? This question was put to the young hotelier.
I don't think anybody really knows what happens. Anything could happen. The property is up for sale. The new owner or the buyer of the property will have to determine how he or she would like to move forward. I certainly hope that it remains as a rosewood. It's a beautiful property. I think that we've done a lot of good work over the last few years, but certainly all of the folks here are working very, very hard to see this property be successful. And at the end of the day, that's really what we all want to see. We want to see Rosewood or Tucker's Point, we want to see Bermuda just be successful and achieve the potential that the island and the properties here on the island have.
Now, one of the cachets was like being a Rosewood, people who are used to Rosewood around the world will look at it and say, I want to stay there. Is that still the case?
I certainly do think so. As I said earlier, I do get a chance to talk to guests. Certainly many guests say, I've come to Bermuda for the first time, and I'll often say, well, where have you been and why is that? And they'll say, well, I've come to Bermuda because there's a Rosewood here. So I do think there is some cachet in that, absolutely.
Well, you look happy.
I'm very happy.
Local employers who used to shy away from young Bermudians with previous gang connections are now adopting a more constructive approach and offering them a job. This came out when Junior Minister for National Security, Jeff Barron, was asked if the community was behind the anti-gang task force.
A tremendous amount. And like I said, the Ministry of Education, the Bermuda Parent and Teachers Associations, all the parents who walk in and speak with Martha Dismont at the Family Center, who speak with Kim Jackson in Mirrors, who stop me on the street and say, look, I got a question about someone who I believe is at risk. There's a lot of engagement. And part of the first process was to create awareness. But more importantly, it was, okay, we have the awareness, everyone's ears are now pricked, now what are we going to be able to provide them? And not just a round series table to say, hey, let's have a discussion about this, but what are those off-ramps? What does that look like? So if I tell you that I want to get out of this type of lifestyle, what are you saying is available to me right now? And let's be realistic, you know, but there are a tremendous amount of companies, and it's emerging now, that they are willing to hire young men and young women who have challenging pasts. And frankly, we applaud them for that. And you know, I'm hoping that we can continue to engage them and perhaps publicize that, because they are champions in our community. Because I can tell you this, you know, whether it's one or whether it's 10 men who leave a gang to work and do an honest job, who are paying taxes, I say that because they feel a part of the community. They feel connected. And when people feel connected to the community, they're very, very less likely to be offenders or to reoffend. And that's important as well.
8 teams have entered an unusual design build competition organized by the Institute of Bermuda and the Construction Association of Bermuda. The competition pairs designers, builders, and students, and their task is to design and create a bench. Crystal Rodriguez, president of the IBA, is amazed at all the support she's been getting.
It's not the first time we've challenged kids, so basically we've done the competition before. This is, I think, maybe our 5th year running now. This is the first time we've been open to high school students, and it's also the first time we've had contractors involved, so we're really excited to have these diverse teams this year.
Something about having kids get involved with artistic things like this, STEM and everything else, so I guess you're following the trend. What's the subject this year?
This year we're doing a bench competition, so it's something that's manageable, but it's also something that teaches really important design skills, because there's so many things to consider when you're designing a bench. Is it the right height? Is it the right depth? Is it wide enough for 2 people to sit comfortably on it? But it's also really important this year that we are talking about teamwork. So architects and contractors have to work together all the time, and we have to convey our ideas clearly to one another. So to get these students understanding that concept in high school and college is, I think, phenomenal.
It's open to any kind of material, I presume, any size?
Yeah, any size. It just has to be able to accommodate a minimum of 2 people. Everybody's using a variety of materials. We did offer small stipends to help cover the material cost, but the teams have to share that cost for whatever they decide. So there's been a lot of recycled materials going into it, which we think is great.
And you're pleased as eight teams. That's very good.
Yep, we have 8 teams registered. So the Institute of Bermuda Architects and Construction Association each decided that we were going to have team members pulled from our various organizations, and we've got a really good group.
The public can vote themselves by visiting Dundonald Street on Saturday, July the 25th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. when the entries will be lined up for viewing by the judges. 50% of the points will come from the professional judges and 50% from the public. The winners will be displayed at Harbor Nights on July 29th until August 31st. 23 Bermuda college students and 25 overseas students have benefited from this year's Workplace Development Funding Awards, with individuals' amount raised this year from $5,000 to $10,000 for overseas recipients and college students having their full tuition subsidized. Home Affairs Minister Senator Michael Fay said it was encouraging to be able to report that 48 people had now had a chance to further their education and improve their marketability in the workforce. The fact that the 41 firms currently being investigated over immigration offenses come from every possible employment sector in Bermuda should, in the opinion of Home Affairs Minister Senator Michael Fay, put paid to the myth that permit abuse is confined to the international business sector.
In the past, under the previous government, if you submitted your work permit late, you'd pay a late fee and keep working. Now you have to appeal those and make sure that the minister gives you that requisite permission pursuant to the law. And that's an important point. We have done it, the other guys didn't.
And this should put a stop to it in the long term.
In the long term, I believe it will. I think that you'll see a significant decrease over time. This is really the first year that these things have been done, and it will hopefully change the behavior and put into the awareness. What's important to note as well, and I released the professions and the areas of work where people have been levied penalties or are in the process of being levied penalties, and across the board. We're not looking at one section of the community or one area of work. It's across the board. From professionals to non-professionals to blue-collar workers to service industry, it's across the board.
Whereas you get the impression sometimes it's just international business.
That's what people like to say, or they like to say it's just the construction industry, they like to say it's just a certain industry. That's simply not the case. It's across the board. Well, when you're looking at the levels of fines, you recall that it's for a first offense is $5,000, second offense is $10,000. We also doubled criminal penalties. And notwithstanding what the Chief Immigration Officer determines in respect of civil penalties, it does not remove the ability for the minister, i.e. me, to remove work permits if I deem that's appropriate. Those individuals who completely ignore immigration policy are removed and are put on stop lists. We are doing a good job, in my view. The department is doing a fantastic job in following the law, and again, far more than what the previous government has ever done.
A Bermuda-based Chinese insurance company is poised to launch an innovative healthcare insurance product in the Chinese market after a deal was inked at the Bermuda signing ceremony recently. While invited guests from the BMA, the BDA, HSBC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Kane Bermuda Limited looked on, Top Insurance Company Limited, a recently licensed Chinese Bermuda Class C insurer, linked up with Guangwing Yi Investment Company to launch the product, which will need the approval of the Chinese regulatory authority. And now we turn to Earl Baisden with the latest from the sports desk.
The Bermuda Under-17 women's national team opened their Under-17 World Cup qualifiers with a win in Haiti against Curaçao. Bermuda's Under-17 national team started the game pretty slow. Curaçao was stronger for the first 10 minutes but quickly faded. Bermuda got on the scoreboard in the 14th minute when Tia Lindo sent a pinpoint pass diagonally to Samir Lodaro, who took one touch and smashed the ball into the top of the net. 2 minutes later, it was 2-0 when Lindsay Hart latched on to a misplaced Brianna Swainson header and calmly placed the ball in the back of the net. Curaçao, against the run of play, pulled a goal back in the 23rd minute, making the score 2-1. But 4 minutes later, Amber Butterfield played the ball forward to Lindo, who again played a diagonal ball to Lodaro, who crossed it for Leilani Nesbitt to calmly finish. Bermuda was awarded a corner kick as the halftime approached. And Lodaro played a short ball to Zakaya Durham, whose shot hit the underside of the crossbar before dropping over the line and out. However, there was some confusion as to whether the ball crossed the line, but the referee signaled goal. Bermuda started the second half much like they did the first, and it took some 22 minutes before the Bermuda girls were able to score. Nisbet received a superb through ball and outpaced her defender and calmly slipped the ball past an advancing Curacao goalkeeper. In the 75th minute, Lindo took a ball out of the air, dropped it to the ground, rounded her defender, and struck the ball from some 22 yards out and hit the back of the net. Nisbet then closed out the scoring with a hat-trick goal in the 79th minute before being substituted. National coach Nikita Robinson, after the game, is quoted as saying, "I think the game was a success. We began with a rough start, however we were able to settle down the game and start to play basic football. We used a lot of technical components that we worked on in training, proving our hard work has paid off." End quote. Now to Toronto in the Pan American Games. CC Woman and Cameron Pimentel continue competing on the waters in Toronto. The pair's racing was staged inside the harbor, with hundreds lining the shoreline to watch the racing. After suffering through the first 3 days of racing due to delays of lack of wind, it seemed to go without a hitch on day 4. Woman recorded back-to-back 10th-place finishes during the women's laser radial fleet racing, and then she closed out with a 6th-place finish. She entered the day and ended the day in the same starting position as 11th with 51 net points. Pimentel started and ended the day in 14th place in the men's laser fleet after 3 races on the day. Pimentel recorded finishes of 12th, 11th, and 14th. He ended the day with 71 net points. Meanwhile, Lisa Blackburn and Julian Fletcher took to the University of Toronto Scarborough Aquatics Pool for competition. Blackburn finished the women's 200-meter breaststroke heat 1 in 7th place, clocking a time of 2:42.82. Her time qualified her for the B final. In the B final, Blackburn touched the wall in the time of 2:46.32, finishing 7th. She summed up her race in the final this way.
I haven't really focused too much on the 200 this year. It helps me, set up a stroke and get a couple of swims out of the way, calm the nerves a bit. I was really nervous this morning. I thought I'd be a bit better tonight, so I'm a bit disappointed with that swim. But yeah, I have a day off tomorrow, and then Friday I've got the 100 breast.
Obviously, you want to set yourself up to ultimately make your dream, which is competing in the Olympics.
Right.
Does tonight set you up for that, trying to do better tomorrow, Friday, and really work that technical stuff out? And as you say, the nerves, but ultimately trying to get as close as you possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest competition I've been to in the past 4 years. The last time I represented Bermuda at a major games was in Guadalajara. So, to come here and experience it again and see how fast people are swimming and what they're doing to prepare and, getting used to the athletes' village and the accommodation. I have to learn from that again, and I have to get used to it. And, of course it sets me up, and I'm really looking forward to going back home already because I know what I've got to do. I have a lot more work to do.
Competing in the men's 200-meter breaststroke heat 1, Fletcher finished 5th, touching the water in a time of 2:20.97. Unfortunately, Fletcher recorded the 17th fastest time, just missing out on a qualifying spot in the B final. Fletcher spoke about his performance.
I think the stroke's looking good. I kind of faded in the last 100 a little bit more than I would have liked, but that's partially because the nerves of the first race. Getting that first race done with definitely helps out a lot going in with confidence to the next race. So, I definitely have a lot to work on in the 200, and I'll take some pointers from my coach this morning, but I'm happy with that time.
But does it set you up for what you're really looking for, that 100-meter? Or the 50-meter?
Absolutely. I've been working on speed since I got that national record in the 200. I've just been working on my speed in the 100, so I'm looking forward to seeing how fast I can go. I've put in some fast splits in practice, so hopefully those will correlate to my racing.
Meanwhile, VSB Sports can reveal that Bermuda's Pan American Games sprinter Sharia Morgan has a nagging injury and will not be able to compete in the women's 100-meter dash in Toronto. Bermuda's under-19 national rugby team have fallen in the plate semi-final of the 2015 North American Caribbean Rugby Association's under-19 Caribbean Rugby Championships in Orlando, Florida. Bermuda took on Turks and Caicos, going down 17-11. Bermuda got a try from Roy Crofts and 2 penalties from Callum Mole. It was a rough day for the Dennytown Sports Club's teams playing in the Disney Cup International Competition yesterday. The Dennytown Hornets under-11 boys playing in bracket 2 of the Silver Division went down in their match 4-2, while the under-13 boys playing in bracket 1 of the Gold-Silver Division were defeated 1-0. The girls under-12 went down in their match against GPS FC Bayern 7-1. Robin Horsfield took part in the under-17 expert category of the Bayo St. Paul Canada Cup mountain bike event held at Bayo St. Paul, Quebec. Competing against some of Canada's top cyclists, Horsfield finished 11th in a field of 28. Following his finish, Horsfield is quoted as saying, "I've been working on faster starts to maintain contact with the pack as the starts are extremely fast in overseas competitions." End quote. I'm Earl Baston reporting from the Pan American Games right here in Toronto for VSP Sports.
And now for the weather. For Friday, July 17th, there will be sunny periods with a shower or two in the area. Winds will be southwesterly, light to moderate. The high will be near 87, the low near 78. This weather report is courtesy of the Bermuda Weather Service. Thank you for watching VSP News Online for Thursday, July the 16th. I'm Charles Webb.